So I see there are some more people dropping in. Welcome. It's nice to have you here. Until the official webinar starts, you can join us on the bonfire. There's an URL that you can find here, and you can join this virtual whiteboard. You can add your name here, and you can write some post-its, share some thoughts. So I see Daniel, welcome to the bonfire as well. I see you have some experiences with distributed teams, most of them in Germany, India, and USA. So that's quite cool. A global collaboration. I think that's one of the biggest benefits of remote work, obviously. Everyone else who dropped in the last few minutes, we have created a virtual whiteboard with a bonfire, and you can take a seat at the bonfire. The URL is on the left. We use this until the official webinar starts.
If any of you are not hearing us, then you probably won't hear this, but you hopefully see that I'm talking and might adjust your sound settings.
Yeah, this is actually a nice thought that is listed here. Thanks for highlighting this. Yeah, this asynchronous part of remote work. I think this is one of the biggest strengths that remote work can foster. Really being able to work asynchronously. Not everyone has to be in one room all the time to know everything. Instead, you have a lot of collaboration tools. You have a lot of documentation, and you can really work asynchronously. I will definitely address that later. Welcome, Johannes. Nice to have you on the bonfire. Welcome, Catherine. Nice to have you here too. Tobias is here. Perfect. And I see more and more people dropping in. So if you dropped in the last minute, on the left, you find a URL which you can use, and you can join us here on our nice fireside, where we can tell some stories. You can create post-its, you can share some thoughts, and we will definitely address them later. If you join on mobile, you don't have to join this board. So this is totally optional. This is only for us as a warm-up now. And it's also a nice exercise to see that even when you are remote, you can feel like being together on a fireside. Welcome, James. And I see Catherine has a lot of experience on remote work, 2 years already. That's really, really nice to hear. So welcome everyone who joined in the last minute. I see it's now 2 p.m. So thanks for being punctual. That's really nice. We will still wait for some more people dropping in. In the meantime, if you want, you can join us here at our fireside. There's the URL on the top left. I see there are more people. Marcus is coming. Thanks for joining us. Celine, Jens. Nice to have you here.
Just in case you are not seeing the Zoom webinar chat, we'll be collecting questions in the Q&A function. So if you want to add any of your questions during the talk or now, we will try to address as many as we can in the second half of this webinar.
Welcome Ryan Alexander on the board. Welcome Miria. I see David joined us. And thanks to the person who duplicates people. I see now more and more people coming in. It's really nice. I think at some point this board will totally crash because too many people are collaborating. And welcome to everyone who joined us in the past minute. As you can see, we haven't started the webinar yet. We are just doing a warm up here. We have a virtual bonfire. And you can join us if you want to. The link is on the top left. So I see Marcus is a remote fanatic from Trondheim, Norway. It's really nice to have you here. And we have more people here who have little experience with remote work, but are now forced to do remote work through to the COVID virus. I think that's definitely the case for many people right now. And that's good. I think that's a good chance for everyone, because I think remote work is an advantage for a company, not a disadvantage if it is applied correctly. I see for Mireia, that seems to be the same since you're working remote since 10 days only. That's really cool. Thanks for having here. And welcome to everyone who joined us in the last couple of minutes. We will wait 2 more minutes until we start the official webinar. And until then, you are free to join us here on the bonfire. You can duplicate one of these tiny items and add your name. And you can also write some post-its. And we will go through them in a few minutes. I see Christine joined us on the bonfire. Martin joined us. Björn, welcome. Oh, nice pictures. Welcome, Marcus. Good to see you. That's really cool. Welcome, Thomas. Yeah, feel also free to add your Twitter handles here. That's really cool. Yeah, I see Celine, you want to learn more about remote jobs or remote first jobs. I definitely see a rise in that need lately. I think more and more people realize that it's yeah, really great to work remotely, to have flexible working hours. And that's definitely a benefit. You don't waste time in commuting, which is really cool. So in my previous job, I had to commute 2 hours a day. And I cannot imagine going back. Cool, we wait 1 more minute until we officially start. If you're new, feel free to join us on the bonfire. You don't have to if you're remote. If you're on mobile, this might not work, that's fine. It's just a warm-up exercise, and in a minute I'm opening my slides and then we start there. All right, so I see more cards here. You want to learn more about innovative practices. That will definitely be the case today. At least I hope so. That I can show you something, at least how we do it, and I hope maybe you can apply this, to your business or to your team as well. Same was here for remote techniques. And what else do we have? I would like to learn how to keep non-tech savvy communities engaged online. That's definitely a good question. Maybe one of the answers is this board already. So I definitely made good experiences with these kind of gatherings, so that we don't only see us in 2D spaces and faces, but only have like a virtual representation of it. So thanks everyone for joining. Thanks everyone who joined early and was able to participate on that board here. I think it's quite a nice board, and I already feel connected to you. This is actually one of the practices we use at BRYTER. Having these boards, having these bonfires, whenever we have a product sync or a company sync, we gather around a bonfire, and it makes it way more easier, way more human to connect with each other. So I'm glad that some of you joined us here, and I'm now closing this board, and I'm jumping over to my slides, and we'll try to share them. So let's see. Everything works out well, so you should be able to see my slides now. Is that correct? Can you confirm? Juk, Iris? Perfect, thank you.
Good.
That's good to hear. Then welcome everyone to our webinar. We are 3 hosts today, Iris, Juk, and me. Iris is working in our people team. Juk is a backend developer, and I'm one of the managing directors of BRYTER. I'm at home, as you can see. I'm currently in the smallest wine region in Germany, and I'm curious to learn where you're coming from. I think you're coming from all over the world, which is, it's just a beauty. It's the beauty of remote work. So I'm glad you're here. The agenda of today is I will talk around 5 minutes about BRYTER. It's not about BRYTER, the product today, it's about remote work. So the main presentation will be about remote teams, and especially I want to address the topic of building trust in remote teams. And I think the presentation will take around 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and then we have a Q&A session. If you have a question, then let us know into the chat, and then we will go through it afterwards. So let's begin. We start with a short introduction of BRYTER. BRYTER is an enterprise software as a service company. We have 70 people in our team currently, and we all work complete remotely. Everybody works from home. I think we are spread over 9 or 10 different countries currently, and we serve customers all over the world. I think we have customers on all 5 continents now. I think it's in 15 countries in some. We have offices in Berlin, Frankfurt, and London, but these offices are mostly just to have meetings, for example, with customers. And sometimes we do on-sites there, so we fly in the whole team to get together. We are one of the fastest growing enterprise software companies in Europe currently, and over 1,200 applications have been built so far with our software. This is a nice team picture that we did last summer. I think it's half of the team that we now have, so we doubled in size until then. Here's a short list of our customers, and I'm showing you this because we are enterprise. So BRYTER really sells mostly to enterprise customers. We don't do B2C, we don't do small businesses. I think the smallest corporate customer we have makes 4 billion in revenue. The smallest consultancy or law firm we work makes more than 100 million in revenue. So this is enterprise software that we're building. And if you have not used BRYTER before, it's a no-code editor that enables experts to automate the knowledge. And no code means you can build software without coding. So one of our major USPs is actually that we have a very easy to use software. And a nice use case to demonstrate you what can be done with BRYTER is the current coronavirus situation. And what you have learned probably over the last couple of days is that every government has to give out loans to many, many people. I think here in Germany, we have the situation that we expect that 300, 400,000 people and companies need actually financial aid. And what do you do as a government if you have to give out so many loans to so many people in such a short time? You have to automate them, right? And this is actually possible with a software like BRYTER. So our customers, KPMG, PwC, they consult the governments here in Europe, and they build with our software tools that automate giving out economic aid during this crisis. And the things that normally take months take now days, and I think this is a great impact. If you want to learn more about the product and what you can build with that for your company, you can just go to our website. There are sometimes events listed, so you can sign up for these events. For example, if you want to learn how to build an NDA generator, a letter of intent generator, virtual legal assistants, we can build chatbots with BRYTER. So feel free to sign up. And if you have any questions, there's obviously also lots of forms to contact us. So that's BRYTER, and today is about remote work, and we are a remote company, and so that's why I want to tell you a bit about how we do it. I want to start with a site that I really like, because I really believe in, because I have experienced that over the last two years, and that is that remote challenge is not a challenge. Remote work is not a challenge to overcome. It's a clear business advantage. BRYTER was only able to scale that fast, to grow that fast, and to serve so many customers because we are a remote company. And that's definitely, for me, this is a proof. I cannot think about ever going back to a company that is only working remotely. Before we start, there's a disclaimer. This disclaimer, I think this is very important. Whatever I present to you now, this is just how we do it. But organizational development is not about a destination, it's about the journey. So whatever you hear today, take this as an inspiration, but don't copy it, because every company is different, every team is different, and you need to find your own way. You need to walk that way with your team. You need to walk that way with your company, and you need to see what works and what doesn't work for the current situation you're in. So that being said, let's jump in. The remote journey of BRYTER starts with that question. And the question is, do I want to hire the best people in my city, or do I want to hire the best people in the world? This is basically the question I asked myself when I founded BRYTER. Initially, actually, when I founded BRYTER, I thought that I will build the best team in Berlin and the best team in Frankfurt. And then I started hiring people, and I figured out, okay, there are some great people in Berlin, but I also know better people, for example, in Budapest. And the question was, okay, what is more important for me? Is it more important for me that I work with good people in my city that I have on site, or do I work with the best people that I can find all over the world? And we decided for the latter and started hiring people remotely. And this is how our remote journey began. And we quickly transitioned to a full remote company within the course of a couple of weeks and months, actually. And while we are on that way, I come more and more to the conclusion, actually, that I have the feeling every company is a kind of a remote company, because when I look back into my career, there was always one person remote. Okay, there's always that one person who is currently on travel because they have a sales meeting. There's always that one person who's currently stuck in traffic and can't make it to the meeting. There's always that one person who has to work from home because there was some situation. And on-site companies disadvantage these people. And this is a huge inefficiency, which I think could be easily removed if on-site companies learn more from remote companies. So even if you don't work in a remote company or you don't want to transition into a full remote company, I hope there's still something you can learn today that you might want to adopt to your on-site company. And that being said, I want to welcome you to the BRYTER universe. The BRYTER universe is we call it our playbook. We have a playbook how our company runs. And this playbook describes how we collaborate and how we organize ourselves. This playbook is something we use for onboarding. And this is also something that we use a lot internally to align and to improve and to see if the things that we currently do are still the things that it's how we want to do it. And this playbook is centered around these 7 questions. The first question is how we cultivate trustful relationships. The second question is, why do we exist? Why do we actually spend half of our life into this organization? How do we structure? How do we make decisions? How do we do leadership? How do we personally improve and improve professionally? And how do we plan and align work? I think these are the major questions that everyone has when they join an organization, be it a new company or be it just a sports club or another organization, right? So when you join a football club, you want to know, okay, why do we actually exist? Are we doing this to win the league and to earn money, or are we just doing this for fun, right? And how do we make the decision who plays and who does not play? So this is a question you always have. And this is why we have centered our playbook around these questions. And then there are more layers coming to this question. So the second layer gives I'm sorry, just see that I'm not in full screen mode. So you can see it here. The first answers are very simple and very easy answers. But that still gives an impression. So you can see, okay, the answer for us, how we cultivate relationship, is that we say, okay, we work around human-centered principles. We exist because we have a strong customer focus. It's our clear goal that we have highly customer empathy, so that we can really deliver a value-adding service and product. You see that we are a remote network organization. We are not a hierarchy organization. We are also not a metrics organization. We are a network organization. So it's really flat. It's really about self-organizing teams. We believe in collective intelligence and distributed decision-making. Same goes for leadership. We are a company where it's really important that you take ownership, that everyone kind of is a leader and takes leadership tasks. We believe in peer and group learning, and we adopt as good as possible the HR and lean mindset. So these are the easy answers, and then there are more complex answers and principles and practices that we actually do to achieve all these topics. And all of this is actually embedded in even more. So obviously there's an underlying mental model that came from us as founders. It's inspired by obviously the people who work into that organization, into that universe. There are blueprints we have used. And when we work in that playbook, we obviously have to think about, okay, how can we measure that? Is the organization health high or not? We need to train people into it. So we have an academy, and all of this actually ends up or is summarized into a wiki. So the final result of everything I showed you is basically a written documentation how our company works. This is quite nice because everyone who comes now into the company can actually see or can read about how things work in our teams and in the company itself. So the question is now, and I've shown you a lot of stuff. The question is now, why are we doing this? Is this just marketing? Is this just to have fun? Is this just employer branding? Or is it just, I don't know, for the generation Y? To answer this question, everything we do in this playbook is to be a high performance team. We are a highly competitive company into our market. We are a market challenger. We have very ambitious goals that we want to achieve. And to do that, we need to be a high performance team. And the question is, how do we do that? So how do we become, as a company, as a team, how do we become actually a high performance team? And that's actually a nice question to you as well. So how do you do that currently in your company? How do you know if you are in high performance mode or not? How do you measure that? How do you do that? Which practices do you have? Which rituals do you have to become a high performance team? And I know that there are coming a lot of answers in your head. You might think, okay, if this is a competitive company on the outside, it must be competitive in the inside as well. You need strong managers. You need managers who control the teams. Business is war. That's what I hear very often. And the first enemy is the employer, is the colleague next door. Obviously, these are not good answers. So when we look into literature or into studies, so what does a high performance team make? Then we find quite the opposite of what I just told you. So if you want to be competitive on the outside, you must mostly be soft in the inside. So when you read books about it, when you read studies about it, I think a good summary here is this. It's a book, The Culture Code. I can highly recommend. It basically says that there are 3 things you need to do as a leader or as an organization to be to build high performance teams. You need to build safety. You need to share vulnerability, and you need to establish purpose. I think that the last one, the established purpose, is something that is obvious. Still, many companies don't do that very well. But yes, I want to know why I'm working here. And that's what motivates me, that's what brings me into high performance mode. And I need safety. And this is a very, very sensitive and very, very important topic. In our very complex world, we need collaboration, and collaboration comes when people can speak up openly, when they can open up, when they can actually collaborate in a safe environment. And to create a safe environment, one of the most important points is actually to share vulnerability, to open yourself up, to share personal stories, to accept that you are not the person who has all the answers, and that the collective is actually way more powerful than you are alone. If we look into other studies, I just have one more here, which is from Google. It basically says the same thing. So high performance teams, they have psychological safety, they can take risks, dependability, they can count on each other, structure and clarity, meaning of work, and impact of work. So the same thing. And if you want to sum this up to one word, then what it's all about is trust. So a high performance team needs trust. And the question is, how do we create trust? And that's actually the reason why our playbook starts with the question, how do we cultivate trustful relationships? It does not start with the question, how we plan and align work. It starts with how we cultivate trustful relationships. If we answer this question correctly, or if we fulfill that answer, then everything else will follow. If we have trust in our team, we will figure out what the best way is, how we structure. If we have trust in our team, we will figure out the best way how we make decisions and how we do leadership together. And working together and aligning together will work not automatically, but it will work easily. So trust is the core of everything that we do. And it's so important that I decided that this whole webinar will be about building trust. Because it's a super sensitive and super important topic. If you are able to build trust in your remote company, or obviously in your on-site company as well, then everything else will follow. And I will make a series out of this webinar. So next time we will talk about structure and decision making, but I really want to talk about trust today. And this is how I want to start now. You shared already at the beginning that you want to learn more about practices. So basically what I have now is a list of practices that we do to cultivate trustful relationships. And I want to start with one that I personally, it's a very easy thing. So we start with the easy ones. very easy practice that we do is we have virtual coffees every morning. Like you have when you're an on-site company, you go to the coffee corner, you make yourself a coffee. We meet up virtually. So every morning at 9:30, we have a reminder in our Slack channels and in our chat tool that reminds us that it's virtual coffee time. Then everybody joins a video call and we have virtual coffees together. We also have virtual lunches where we cook together. This also works. And yeah, it's just a space where we can share thoughts, where we can address topics that we want to talk about. I personally call this collision spaces because that's something that is missing in remote companies, right? In on-site companies, you have this very often. You have that coffee corner where you meet each other, where you say, hey, by the way, do you know this? Have you heard of this? This is super important to enable collaboration. In remote companies, we need to somehow enforce that. And having these virtual spaces is a good practice to do that. Yeah, it's very simple. You can adopt that right away. You can start tomorrow scheduling some virtual coffees. Another practice is obviously camera on. It sounds obvious, but for some people it's not. But you cannot connect with anyone. You cannot build a relationship with anyone if your camera is not on. You really need to see each other. There is a nice study, I think, it's from Thomas Allen. He studied actually how people behave in on-site offices, and he made that I think famous sentence that he said, if you place people on different floors, the person, the other floor, he's so far away, like they are so far away, like being on another continent. It doesn't matter if they're on another floor or on another continent, it's the same thing. You're unable to build relationships with people you cannot see. Same goes for they're sitting in another room. That's actually the reason why many companies established open spaces, because only when you see people, you can build relationships. And that's also, for me, it's a proof that remote companies can do that as well. Because if we switch on our cameras and then we are on video calls, then we can see each other. That helps us to build relationships. I think that's straightforward. One thing that I really like is sometimes, you sit in these video calls and you just see faces and you don't know how people actually feel. We have these remote, not remote, we have real life emojis. We printed it out and that's actually quite a cool thing to yeah, show your appreciation or show how you currently feel. Yeah, even remotely. Exactly. Real life emojis. And the third thing I have in here is virtual spaces. If you have joined earlier, then you have seen it. We have done it with you as well. Mostly in meetings, I have a second virtual whiteboard. There's a bonfire on it, and people can pick some little persons and add their names and play around a bit with it. It's very easy, and it just helps to overcome that feeling of physical separation. And you're sitting around the bonfire, people start playing around normally. So as you can see, Vincent was during that meeting in New York, so he had pizza. Bilal was more observing this meeting. He wasn't actively participating. Who else do we have? Simon was probably working on authentication features, and Niklas is doing a lot of interviews currently. So this just helps people to connect, even if you're in a remote setting. Try it out there, and some nice tools out there if you look for virtual whiteboards. So that was an easy entry. Let's dig a bit deeper and start with the principle. I had this mentioned this before, so I think sharing vulnerability is super important, especially as leader. That means that you actually accept that you're not the smartest person in the room. And we have that tendency as people, and this is totally understandable, that we want to hide our weakness, that we want to appear competent, and that makes sense. On the other hand, it's the wrong move to create safety and trust, right? So if you want to create safety and trust, we must share vulnerability, we must share personal stories. We must make sure people really understand that we are open for feedback, So a little sentence like, what am I missing, is mostly all that it actually needs to really make sure, hey, yeah, I acknowledge that I'm not the smartest person here, yeah, you can give me feedback at any time. And I have some practices to establish this in companies as well. One is that we try to start every meeting with a check-in round. Not sure if you've heard of that, but check-in rounds, it's a very simple practice. It just means that before you jump right into the agenda, the first thing you do is everyone checks in by saying how they are doing. Very simple. Or you can also ask another question like, how was your weekend? What was your best experience in the weekend? Something like that. But you share personal stories before you jump into the meeting. And yeah, it's tempting to say, yes, I'm good. I don't want to share anything. But actually, it really helps to start the meeting, to kick the meeting off, to make sure we perceive each other as human and not as robots. We have that quote here from Brené Brown. Brené said, "Vulnerability is the core, the heart, the center of meaningful human experience." And I totally believe that. For some, this sounds a bit, I don't know, weak, because they would say, okay, this just is overhead. This distracts us. Let's just jump right into the meeting. Let's just right now start into the agenda. I tell you what to do because I'm the leader. I think it's quite the opposite. I think jumping right into the agenda is more the easy way out, because then, yeah, the person who gives the agenda actually makes it and directs it. I think if you want to really have a meeting where collaboration is the key, then you should really make sure that you perceive each other as humans, and check-in definitely helps. Same goes for checkout. So after the meeting, everyone just shares a bit how that meeting made them feel. It helps a lot. Yeah, something differently that we try to do a lot. Obviously, not only for remote teams, relevant is the culture of one-on-ones. One-on-ones, on the one hand, from my side as one of the founders, with my teammates. On the other hand, and I think this is even more important, is that, yeah, the teammates do it together, because actually I cannot give people valuable feedback. I am not working with everyone on a day-to-day business. I'm not the person who can, I don't know, really rate people and tell them what exactly they need to change to be even better. So we really try to make sure that people sit together, have reserved time for 1 hour, and they just talk about, okay, how can they improve? Yeah, how can they improve together? How can they do become better persons and become better at their job? In this slide, I share with you my personal one-on-one agenda. So these are actually the 5 questions or the 5 agenda points that I have when I have one-on-ones. The first question is, how are you doing? So here we have it again, like that personal connection. I think it's the most important question. The second thing is, I tell the person I have that one-on-one with 3 things that they have done incredibly good lately. So here we have an appreciation culture, right? It's so easy to forget, yeah, to cheer people up, to appreciate the work they're doing. So I'm practicing that. And then we focus mostly on learning. So what has the person learned in their peer one-on-ones? Is there anything that blocks them? And then the last question is, how can I become a better leader? So here we have again this vulnerability thing. I acknowledge that I'm not the smartest person in the room. I need that feedback. The feedback is super important, so we can grow as a company. And that's the last point. There is no, and this might be weird for some, but there's no topic where I say, where I give feedback in terms of like, okay, now I tell you, here's my list of things you need to improve. Here's my critique. Here's the bad things that you have done. I don't address these in these one-on-ones, in my regular one-on-ones. If I see something that can be improved, I address it always directly and right away, and I don't wait until I have a one-on-one in 2 months or so. So this is not part of my regular one-on-ones. Another practice that I think it's an advanced practice, but it's a very important part and can become a very important part of a company culture. We call it caring circles. Caring circles are a personal board of trustees that help each other throughout processing attention, providing supportive space for reflection, for growth, mostly facilitate self-directed problem solving, because this is when we talk about leadership, when we talk about ownership, I mean, it's all about, okay, how can I see an issue somewhere, I see a problem somewhere, how can I solve that? It's not about, you know, delegating and saying, okay, someone else will fix it. And at BRYTER it's always about, okay, I see something, how can I fix it? But obviously you cannot fix every problem by yourself, so you need peers around you. And the caring circle is an amazing tool to do that. So we have this instrument of caring circles, and the caring circle is, more or less, it's a group of people. So as you see on the right, so for example here, Niklas has created a temporary caring circle, and he invited five people to join, or 4 people to join. As you can see here, he has a document where he wrote down his tension, so everybody can read it, and then most likely schedule the meeting or a session where the 4 people just discussed about it and helped him to solve that. I think this is it's great practice. For some it might sound like therapy and something that, like, okay, is this overhead? Do we really need that? For me, it's a really important factor of any culture. You know, I mean, what do you address as an employee? What bothers you in a company? I mean, these caring circles are not about, okay, my cat is sick and I'm worried, right? These caring circles are about inefficient processes, inefficient communication, misalignments, ideas that you might have, maybe bad leadership decisions where you really think, okay, we are going in the wrong direction, we need to change that. We need to do things differently. And then based on these caring circles, and more sessions can arise, more people can jump in, and step by step you improve the organization. Another thing that I have added here is something that we call blameless postmortems and retrospectives. I think retrospectives some might be familiar with that. You just get together and reflect the last weeks. Postmortems means that this is something you do when something goes wrong. Then you get together and address this specific topic. I think the key word here is blameless. So it's not about figuring out which person made that problem. It's really just about learning and really figuring out, okay, what was the problem? Why was it actually initiated? So we have a pattern here, like what went wrong? Why did it went wrong? What can we learn from that? And what are concrete action items? I like this. I copied this from a book here. It says, I mean, you might know the phrase, don't shoot the messenger. Here it says, it's not enough to not shoot them. You need to hug the messenger and tell them how much you need the feedback. And I think there's so much truth in that. You want to have a company where everyone can address things that that go wrong, failures that happen, because based on that you can learn. And I think at the end, the company who has the fastest learning cycle will ultimately win the market. Overdue thank yous. We had that before. I think appreciation is super, super important. We see that in studies as well. High performance cultures mostly overdo thank yous. You hear thank you very often. And I think there is definitely a relation. So appreciate each other. We have an appreciation Slack channel now. Yeah, where you can just share good things. Our CEO mostly writes a weekly update, and which basically just consists of a huge list of thank yous of what happened during the week. This is highly motivating, obviously, for people. So no one get ever demotivated by a thank you. Then we have flexible working hours and asynchronous work. We had that in the questions before as well. I think one of the great advantages of remote work is asynchronous work. In on-site companies, everybody assumes that you're around from 9 to 5. In remote companies, you acknowledge that people have flexible working hours. They might be on different continents. So you automatically start to document everything. We have our Slack channels. Everybody communicates openly. There are no hidden or very few hidden channels or hidden emails. So all communication is openly accessible by everyone. Everyone knows what's going on. There's a lot of documentation in the wiki. And yeah, we have flexible working hours. So as you can see on the right, it's just, I copied this morning. I saw that one person started working at 5 a.m. in the morning. The other person finished work at 3 at night. And why not? I don't know why not. Why shouldn't this be possible? Obviously, there's a team agreement that yeah, if there's a session, if there's a meeting in my team, I will be available at this and that time. But if you're a person that can work better at night, then you should do that. And if you currently have a child at home that needs your care, then why not start working early for 3 days and then continue at night? I don't see a problem here as long as the team members communicate with each other. I have a short section about values. I think this is not really remote specific, so I want to do this quickly. So obviously, BRYTER has values. Values are good. They give you direction. On the other hand, if you read these values, you can print it out and you can say, okay, these are now my company values as well, because obviously it's just a summary of something. It's very high level. So what we did, and I think this is a good practice. We said not only we have values, we also have written down desired behaviors and not tolerated behaviors. So there's a wiki page where I think there are 20 or 30 items on it, where we explicitly wrote down sentences where we say, okay, if you work in this company, then this is a very, very specifically what we expect on how you should behave. And if you don't do that, then this is what gets sanctionized actually, because we do not tolerate that you don't take care of our values. And if you have those, then another good practice is to use them as well for hiring. Many companies only hire for tech fit. So does the person match the work attributes that we assign to them? I think this is not so important. It obviously is important, but the most important thing is that people fit your DNA. And to check this DNA fit, obviously you need to know what is your DNA and what are your values. And then we have quite a nice interview or a questionnaire with some behavioral interview questions that check against our DNA, which sums up for us in hiring. It's that people want to see that people have the willingness to go beyond. We want to see that people seek out for feedback, because remote is a lot about proactiveness, eagerness to take responsibility, and ability to build trustful relationships, because that's, for us, it's one of the most important points. And if you see that in a person, then we really believe that this person can contribute and create value. And the technical stuff, that can be learned, right? Our hiring process is fully remote, and it's also distributed. So everyone in the company is able to interview other people, and then the decision is made distributed as well. Hire diverse. Just have copied here a study that figured out that it's not a surprise, but yeah, companies that grow fast and that are very successful, they hire diverse people, and I really believe that to stay competitive in this world, you need very heterogeneous teams. So you need people from different backgrounds, different personalities, and that's what you need to be successful. You don't want to have just the same people who think alike. This is not what helps you to solve complex problems. What we need for new hires, what we have are buddies. We're now here again in this human connection space. So when you join BRYTER, you get a happiness buddy, you get a tech buddy, you get your product manager. So this is related now to the product team. Obviously, if you work in other areas, it's different. But then you have people who actually really help you, and every time. These are kind of like your navigators in the universe, right? So whenever you have a question, then exactly you can at least definitely ask these 2 or 3 people, and they help you around. And same for hiring is super. You need to hire the right people. You also have to let the right people go. I think this is also important, that everyone understands this. This is part of business. We want to have a low tolerance for bad behavior, but we also want to be very explicit about that. So there's actually an explicit process how we do that, so everybody knows what's going on and how that works, so that we can be fair, because at the end it's always fairness. And actually this process is centered a lot around the belief that if there is a person in the organization that is not performing as we expected, then this is mostly not the fault of that person. It's mostly the fault of the manager. So whenever that something happens, it's actually me that ultimately have to question myself. Okay, what can I as a leader do to make sure that this person really can perform well in my organization? And this is the key question. Everything else is not so much important. The key question is always, okay, what can I personally do to make sure that this person can perform well? And if you address these topics this way, many topics or many issues that arise can be resolved easily. So remote work, again, weekly all hands meetings. We have a weekly sync where everyone gets together. I think what we now have is an all hands meeting where really all hands can contribute. That's something I really like. So it's not a top-down presentation. Instead, someone shares on a Wednesday, someone shares a slide deck and everybody can contribute and share highlights that happened during the week, share ideas, share things that happen that are relevant for everyone. I think that's good practice. What we also do, and I think this is important to note, that we also do quarterly on-site. So we are full remote, everyone works full remote, but every quarter we get together into one space that helps us to connect. I believe in full remote teams, no doubt about that. I also believe that sometimes you need to see each other, and this happens on quarterly on-sites, 2 days where we get together, where we discuss high-level strategy, our vision, where we align each other and really make sure we're running into the same direction. And I think this is the last one. This is just a reminder for every leader here in the call. You can have a wiki, you can have a playbook, you can write everything down. If you don't live it, it doesn't make any sense. Then it is really just employer branding. So, I mean, people will just adopt the behavior they see, right? So if you come into an organization and the organization behaves that way, then everyone will behave that way. And that's up for us leaders. It's up for everyone to make sure that these practices are actually lived. And I think that's it, basically. Definitely an advantage from remote teams is lots of animals. So some companies are proud of their office dogs. love about that. We have so many office dogs and so many office cats. That's really nice. And yeah, that's it basically for today. I covered the how we cultivate relationship part today, because I think it's really the most important part. Not only for remote work, it's obviously also for on-site teams, but especially for remote work. Yeah, shared some experiences. Hope that you like that. I hope it inspired you. Maybe you want to adopt some of them. And I built these sites yesterday, and I figured out there's so much more to tell. So I would just make sure that we will schedule another webinar, and then we can. So this was a good warm up, but then we can actually dive deeper into more topics like how do we structure, how do we make decisions. There you will learn a lot about flat hierarchies. You will learn about explicit organizational models and our principle of always BRYTER, which acknowledges that everything needs to change all the time, basically, and you need to continuously improve how you work and question that. And I also want to address decision making, because I think it's an important topic. We have principles like default to open, default to yes, and we have a proposal thinking process, which helps us that even if we are a big company, everyone can actually contribute and make sure that the organization continuously grows and learns. Yeah, so that's will be one of the next sessions. That's how I'm ending. Hope you enjoyed it. And we now have 8 more minutes left for Q&A. So I hand over to Chuk, and maybe you can throw in some questions you collected. And if you don't, if you're not able to address everyone, then maybe we follow up later.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mick. To everyone, feel free to add more questions and vote on them. We will take it as inspiration for the next webinar as well, if we can't answer all of them. But also, please contact us via our website if you have a burning question that we haven't answered. So I guess the first question is, what are some nice warm-up games examples that can be done when we start a webinar with around 15 to 20 participants? So I think you can use games from liberating structures or any other facilitation games that you use in real life and try to take them over to remote work. So for example, we use the check-in circle a lot. It's not necessarily a game, but it's a nice warm-up. You can do any kind of exercise where you go through people and ask them a simple question like, tell us your one lie and one truth about yourself, or you can just say, talk about your favorite pet. So any kind of warm-up game that you usually do, you can probably try to transfer. Other than that, I don't know if Mick, you want to add anything?
I'm really uncreative about that right now.
Okay,
thank you.
Let's go to the next question. So can you give me an overview about the providers you use for your remote work, e.g. Zoom, Slack, GitLab? So we use Zoom, we use Slack, we use GitLab, we use Merle, which is what you see in on Mick's screen right now. It's like a tool for remote whiteboarding and collaboration. It's really useful. And I think the question was asked before why we use this one and not any others like Miro, and I think Benjamin answered it quite well, which is that here you only need an account to create it, but to participate you don't need an account, and it's free to participate. We also use different tools for product management and so forth, but I think we would go too far. Mick, can you think of any tools that are important to mention here?
No, I think you mentioned all of them.
Yeah, so I guess we also sometimes use Slack calls and Microsoft Teams calls, but Zoom is at least my favorite.
Yeah, actually, I mean, we run on the whole Office suite for Office collaboration.
What tips do we have for conducting workshops remotely? So I guess with every good workshop has a good time management and planning, and involves other people. It depends on the workshop, right? I would say make sure to give everyone a chance to participate, and remote can actually help with that, because everyone is suddenly equal. Usually you have people who can find it easier to speak up in groups, and people who find it less easy. And with remote, you're much more dependent on actually facilitating things well, so that everyone has a chance to participate. So try to go in rounds and make it very explicit whose turn it is to talk. Try to use asynchronous stuff as well, so you can collect ideas before the workshop, for example. And yeah, I think this is a whole topic in itself that we could go into, but these are just a few things. Mick, do you have to add anything?
Yeah, so something that I appreciated a lot in the last couple of weeks is actually that you use such a virtual whiteboard and you kind of create a story around that. So you really say, okay, the first step in the agenda is take a seat at the bonfire, then we go around, right? We go in circles. And then the next step in the agenda is like, okay, collect questions, and afterwards we collect feedback. So yeah, you can do so many things remotely that, yeah, it's pretty cool.
I guess one question was also about the on-sites, where people ask, what happens now with the virus? Can we still do them? And yeah, we will have our next one virtually, and we will figure out how it works. Obviously, we prefer to have them in person, but you know, we will find out how it is to do it not in face-to-face, but it should be fine. Iris, do you want to add anything? No. So the next question is, what are some best practices for online recruitment? Do you want to answer?
Yeah, should I go for that one? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so first of all, we are very lucky regarding recruitment, because we've found a lot of our team members through our network. We have a lot of people that are really open to share their knowledge in like meetups or at conferences. So that's why we have a really big network. And found great people through that. Of course, we also use like job boards. There are specific ones for remote work. And if we talk about hiring, Mick already mentioned, we run a team hires team process, meaning that there are at least 6 people people of the team involved in the interviews, and we take a lot of time for interviews. We focus a lot on communication, because that's obviously how we build trust. Yeah, I don't know if that answers the question. Would you like to add, Juk or Mick?
Sounds good.
Maybe have a good culture. People will follow.
Great. The next question is, how do we organize this asynchronous part well? So I think this is a whole big topic, right? I think it's obviously very important how you communicate in a written way, and it's also important that you onboard people on this, because not everyone that joins a remote company already knows how to do these things. This is a constant thing that we have to be disciplined about and talk to each other about, but also like reminding people, hey, could this meeting maybe be done instead as a chat in Slack or something like that. My cat is here. Do you want to add anything?
Show the cat.
Okay.
That's the good thing about remote work. I love that all the time.
Yeah.
No, it's really another topic, and I think I will address that in one of the next webinars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're almost out of time. So I think with the other ones, we will have to probably answer them in another session. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much for summarizing that. As you said, I mean, I will just have a look at it, and then maybe we in the next webinar we just do extended Q&A. So perfect. Thank you so much for attending. It was a pleasure, and it would be nice. So maybe if you can give us some feedback, write us an email, write us here in the Zoom chat, or join this board again if you want to. So there's the URL, and there's some, yeah, you can see here some post-its. What can we do better next time? If you want, you can also add nice things. That's also appreciated. So thank you everyone for attending. I wish you a great Friday and a good weekend. See you soon. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining.